morning. So I just made it under the wire for 40 Under 40, so was really excited about that, and I'm so happy to be here with you this morning. Of course, I'm going to do a little technical magic real quick. I love Creative Mornings. It is an amazing opportunity to come together as a community and hear about all the great work that is going on in and around the Triangle region of North Carolina. I'm continually inspired by the great work that all of these folks, many of you, have been doing over the past few years. So thank you to Creative Mornings. Thank you for all the volunteers, because having this opportunity, this venue to share our stories is something really amazing, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And so when Creative Mornings came up and started talking to me about this, I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm really excited. And then I started thinking about, oh, wow, they sometimes like for you to talk about who you are as a person, your journey of experience, and I'm very comfortable talking about Dix Park. I've been in every church basement, living room, conference room, library, and have been doing this talk for quite some time, and I see a lot of familiar faces. So if I call on you just to come over and take over the presentation, I know there's a lot of you out there that can do it because you've heard it time and time again. But this kind of wave of uncertainty came over me. How am I going to weave my personal story in with the story of Dix Park? And it's something that I really have been thinking about over the past couple of months. So I'm not from around here. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and Meridian, Mississippi, which means I'm Texipian. My southern drawl and my Texas twang kind of canceled each other out, and I get this, whatever this is left over with. But I have really strong memories of rodeo, of being at my family's restaurant, of spending summers alternating between the suffocating Mississippi humidity and the oppressive Texas heat, not unlike the week we've just had. But it's really something that those experiences, those memories of places are something that I hold very strong and dear to my heart. So just out of curiosity, how many of y'all would say you're from Raleigh? A few hands, right? How many of you grew up knowing about Dix Hill? Another few hands. How many folks have been out to the park recently? Hopefully most hands. So when I took this job, I was stepping into what would be the largest and arguably most important civic project the city of Raleigh has done in the past 50 years and will do in the past 100 years. And I knew some about this place, but not a lot. So what I did is I really spent the first couple of months reading everything I could about Dix Hill, reading about the state of mental health care treatment in America and the history of that, reading about Dorothea Dix the woman. I also spent a lot of time walking out there, walking through the groves of trees, walking over the hills and the valleys, and just really becoming very familiar with its past and its present. And so when Creative Mornings reached out for me to do this talk, I did the same thing. I went out there and started thinking about this theme of preserve, and what does that mean in terms of place? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that for me, preserve is most powerful when we talk about memory. And Dix has a very strong and long memory. And I could have talked about it as, this amazing opportunity that our leadership to preserve the 308 acres to create this great public park. And I could have talked about how we need to preserve a lot of the buildings out there as a physical reminder of the history and legacy of the place. Or maybe how we did just go through this amazing master plan process where 65,000 area residents participated in shaping the future of Dix Park, and how we're going to preserve the opportunity for future generations to enjoy this great space. But I also started thinking about this history and legacy. And the more I walked around, the more I realized there's so much depth and complexity to this place. And that's worth talking about, those memories of what Dix Park and Dix, the campus, really was. So there's this memory of this land as a plantation. It was settled by the Hunter family, which was one of Raleigh's founding families in the 1700s. The Spring Hill House is a physical reminder of this history. But I think what's more important is what's not there. There's no record or structure or marker or sign documenting the condition of the enslaved people that worked that land. So yes, we have a physical memory here, but what is missing from that landscape? And what is our responsibility as a community move forward to tell those stories? And I think about what was part of the original hospital. Y'all might not recognize this, but this is what the hospital used to look like. It was designed in the 1850s by a man named A.J. Davis and was considered a beacon on the hill, a place of perfect health. But decade after decade was altered and changed with the changing kind of mental health care system to a building that is largely unrecognizable today. But what is our responsibility to the hospital era of this place? And you know, there's this memory of during the Civil War, the patients would lean out of their windows and sing to the Union soldiers that were encamped on Dix Hill, asking them to take them as they marched north. And that Sherman's army was camped here. And on April 17th, 1865, after John Wilkes Booth assassinated Lincoln, started to march down Dix Hill with the intent of burning the Capitol down. And then a Union general turned his own artillery on his troops at the base of Dix Hill, stopping the burning of Raleigh, April 17th, 1865. How do we talk about all these stories? Oh, well, this was Dix Hill, there's the Capitol. How do we talk about all these stories in the modern context? This was a place that fed its community. There was a working farm here. They had an entire dairy, row crops, orchards, hog farms. The campus itself was a community larger than a lot of small North Carolina towns right in the heart of Raleigh. But today, when we think about where the hospital farm was, that's today is Centennial Campus of NC State University. Many folks would never know that this once was a place that grew and fed an entire population of community. And so for me, when I think about the future of Dix Park, I think about its past as a place of healing, as a place of family, as a place of celebration and of community. But also I'm very mindful that for the large portion of its history, Dix served only white patients, and that African Americans were sent to Goldsboro and to the Cherry Hospital, and it wasn't until 1965 that the mental health system in North Carolina integrated. And so thinking about all of these things, I could spend hours sharing these stories, these memories of place. There are so many layers of history to be explored, considered, and documented, but what lies beneath the story, what lies beyond the memory is something that I'm really interested in. We've recently joined this group called the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. And what they basically do is they work with sites that have these complex histories and talk about how we turn from memory to action. How do we learn from the experiences of yesterday to inform our experience of today? We've also done a lot of recent work with the Southern Oral History Project at UNC Chapel Hill, documenting the narratives and the lives of people that are still living that had personal connections to this place. And for me, when I think about it, you know, what would it mean to a community to be able to go touch these huge pieces of stone that form the foundation of the original hospital building, knowing that these were hand-carved by slave labor? What would it mean to look out of the same window as someone who lived with mental illness at Dix Hospital? And what would it mean to walk around the cemetery and see both the marked and unmarked grave sites and know that and recognize your own family name? I think there's something really powerful here that we have to consider. Would these experiences change how we interact with each other? Would these experiences change our understanding of where we've come from? Would we be a little less biased? Would we be more compassionate if we started to break down some of these barriers of our history and really own up to it and what it means for the future? Could the park be a place of healing as much as it is a place of fun and enjoyment and excitement? And these are all really strong notions that I want all of us to consider as we move forward together as a community. How do we memorialize this place that is impossibly rich with both hope and sadness? How do we reflect its past but be very mindful of its future as we move forward? And I really believe that one of the best opportunities we have to do this is to leverage our creative community, to reach out to those folks who can metabolize the history of the place through art and creative expression. And there's some really cool examples of this that have happened nationally. One, Anna Schulite did this project in Massachusetts called Bloom, where she took 24,000 potted plants and put them in the hospital corridors, and over 4 days invited the community in to re-experience what the patient experience would be like. And she chose flowers because if you think about it, when you go visit someone at a hospital, you usually take flowers. It was then that these 24,000 plants were delivered out to hospitals and halfway houses all across New England. or the work of, I'm blanking on his name, the work of, at the Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania, Jesse Crimes. And what he did is when he was incarcerated in federal prison, he hand-painted these great impressionist landscapes on his bed sheets. And every so often, he would mail his set of bed sheets home. And after he was released, they did a collage of his bedsheet art in a former cell. So what could we do with Dix Hospital to not only understand the history and legacy of place, but to make it relatable and interesting so that future generations don't forget everything that happened there? And by chance, we've heard a little bit about it. This talk happens to be on the same day that the Office of Raleigh Arts is kicking off Seek Raleigh, which is this great local expression where artists are going to weave combinations of performances and storytelling, collections of historical objects to learn and listen about the past, present, and future of Dix Park. There's this really amazing exhibit that's called The Will of the Father, where two folks are going to interpret the history of Theophilus Hunter, and more importantly, share through dance and lyrics the experience of the 61 people who were enslaved and bequeathed from Hunter Sr. to Hunter Jr. So there's the work that Tiff Merritt is doing with a collection of found objects. That is, she's going to really interpret the history of both the Cherry Hospital and the Dix Hospital and ask questions around trauma and healing. There's the work of mental slavery and Tarish Pepkins using puppets to really talk about this history, the long history of Dix Hill. And the work that is the 1 mile walk with headphones, listening to the sounds of place and really connecting with the artist on the Dix In Sound In Situ. And these are just a few of the examples of all of the really great things that are happening this weekend with art in terms of interpreting the history and legacy of place. But what I'm also very mindful of is that Dix is going to be a place where new memories are made. Let's just take a minute and close our eyes and think back to our childhood. What are all the feels and the smells and the sounds? Where are you? Maybe some of you are in your childhood, the backyard of your childhood home. Maybe some of you are on a playground at your school. And maybe some of you are at a park. And that's what I think the opportunity of Dix Park is. It's going to be a place where memories are made for generations to come. And we did this little experiment. We planted 5 acres of sunflowers. And who knew that over the course of 3 weeks, we'd have over 30,000 visitors, over 3 million social media hits, and people made the park their own in very expected and unexpected ways. But this is what it's all about, right? This is the power of place and the power of personal connection. Who would have thought? And maybe, anyone come to Dreamville last month? A few folks. This was a transformative moment for our community. Not for Dix Park, not for the city of Raleigh, for our entire community. Over 40,000 people came to Dix Park to celebrate music and art. 70% of those people weren't from this region of North Carolina. Dix Park truly became a destination for the world that day. And I look forward to it happening again. But over the past 3 years, we've worked really hard to open up this place that was closed down for 300 years, to make sure that people understood that this is their park, their place, to make a statement that this is a common ground, a place for all. And we've had thousands of people attend hundreds of events. We gave out sleds when it snowed, that rare day in February. We gave out kites when it was windy. And we really we have been inviting the entire community to Dix Park to experience what it means to have a central park, a place for all. And the work is just beginning. Over the next 10 years, we have the opportunity to do something really transformative for Raleigh, for North Carolina, and for the world. If we are bold in our vision and steadfast in our ambition, I really do believe we're going to create a place where memories are made for generations to come. And that's really exciting to me. I think that's very powerful. And in doing so, we're not only going to preserve the generosity of the great park, but in doing so, we're going to create a new identity for Raleigh. And for me, one of the things that I kept back and forth in my mind this past couple of months and thinking about this is, You know, what led me to this place to do this job, and why do I do the work that I do? And I realized I've done a terrible job at talking about that journey. But you know what? Who I am is the work I do, and Dix Park has become a part of me, and I really hope that it becomes a part of you, because there is nothing else like this in our community that is going to have the ability to change lives for generations to come. So thank you so much for being here. It was great to see so many friendly and new faces, but this really is our opportunity to make a statement to the world that we care about our community, we care about our parks, we care about our history, and do something transformative. And I welcome all of you to be a part of it. So thank you.
There's a little bit of time for Q&A, so if anyone has questions for Kate, I can come, we can ask them. Yeah, there we go.
Hello, can you talk about the future plans of the park?
So the theme of preserve was really interesting when I've spent so much time talking about the future plans for the park. So I don't know if that question was planted, but yes, I can talk about the future plans of the park. So we have this adopted master plan. It identifies all of this great transformational work, and we have some information down on the table for you to look at. And it reimagines the park in these 6 landscapes. So it talks about bringing water to the park, about creating a great big meadow. We've identified 6 phase 1 projects. We will be going to Raleigh City Council in August for them to provide direction on how to implement those. But you're going to see some really cool stuff happening within the next 2, 5, and 10 years. We're very mindful that in order for people to believe that this project continues to move forward, we need to demonstrate momentum. So the Creek project, for example. Anyone been to Rocky Branch Creek, run alongside it? It's kind of a sad little 30-foot wide, smelly creek. The idea of the master plan is to open that up, to create a waterfront, to be a place where you can dip your toes in the water, where kids learn about frogs or tadpoles becoming frogs, and creating a waterfront for the city of Raleigh. That's a phase 1 project. Has anyone come out to our pop-up dog parks? Pop-Palooza? That area we're turning into what will become the coolest kids playground that you've ever seen. The young and young at heart will want to be there. It is unlike anything you can imagine. Nothing like it will exist in Raleigh or in the state of North Carolina. It's also going to be the place that you're going to want to have all of your family reunions, cookouts with your friends every night, public art, fountains. That is a phase 1 project. We want to connect the Rocky Branch Creek to the Walnut Creek Greenway. That is a phase 1 project. We want to restore and enhance the cemetery to make sure that is a more sacred final resting place for the people that are buried there. That is a phase 1 project. And so all of these things, yes, are dependent on funding, yes, are dependent on how we move forward, but have been identified as critical first phase projects so that we really do demonstrate to this community that we are creating a park for all 4 generations.
Hey, good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
This is really more of a comment, I think, and you and I talked about this last week.
Yep.
But I want everybody to be aware that there's a local election coming up. And so hopefully folks running are talking about this important thing for our community. So thank you.
Thanks for saying, yeah.
Sure. Oh, and there's one back there.
So Kate, could you say a little bit about what you were doing right before you came here?
Yeah.
And when you saw the announcement for this job, what made you think you could do this?
I'm going to be real honest. When I applied, and the person that hired me is in this back corner of this room, when I applied for this job, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like, I've been a consultant for 15 years. I was a business management consultant and then a planning consultant, traveled all over the world, and realized that I was more interested in the places I was going than the clients I was helping. So probably need to think about doing something else. And so Mitch Silver, he used to be the planning director of Raleigh. There was a job posting. He was like, Kate, I think you'd be great for this. You should check it out. I looked at it. The first time I visited Dix Park was when I came for my first interview. Don't tell Stephen. And it's all worked out. This has been the most amazing opportunity. And I will be very honest. There is a great group of people working on this. So Stephen Bentley and Lauren and Nick and Grayson and Caroline and everyone else that is here. We have an amazing team of folks working on the future of Dix Park. and Joey, who does all of our fun stuff, who everyone should know. We just have a really great team. I had, you know, there are so many people here that have worked and struggled and fought for this property for 15 years. I was coming as the new kid on the block, and I knew that I had to quickly become an expert to gain the respect to be successful in my job. And hopefully we've demonstrated that our team not only considers this a job, but considers this an amazing opportunity to do something that is going to be impactful for generations to come.
Two more questions and one back there.
Kate, how can we, other than participating in all these wonderful events that you just talked about, how can we help make Dick's a reality? Donations, support with the city?
Yes, I'm going to ask Sean to join me up here real quick, maybe. Oh, this was not planned. So there are a couple of ways. We really are gearing up our volunteer program. So if you like to get dirty and want to help with like invasive species removal, planting of plants, we need help with that. If you want to help spread the word, become an ambassador of this place, we need your help there. If you want to help us at all of our programs and events, directing people to where the bathrooms are, we need help there. We also know that for this project to be successful, we need to continue to maintain the public enthusiasm because that drives political will, and then I'll turn it over to Sean.
Hi, I'm
Oh,
Sean.
I should mention,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, you can tell who you are. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Sean Malone. I have the great honor of being the president of Dix Park Conservancy.
Yep.
So we are the nonprofit that exists to support Kate and the city team in their efforts, to serve as the philanthropic partner, and to rally the community to help ensure, not to help, to ensure the creation and long-term success of Dorothea Dix Park as a place for everyone, as a transformative public space that can really enrich our lives. And the Conservancy also has an amazing team, and Amy and Carrie and Chandler, I think that's everyone from the staff team that's here right now, and a lot of amazing people who inspired the city to buy the park in the first time and inspired the state to be willing to sell the park in the first place. It's a really extraordinary group of growing people in a lot of the faces you see here. Yeah. So how can you help? All the things that Kate said. You asked about donations. Yes, please, thank you. You know, people are giving all the time. The Conservancy contributed both through direct spending and grants to the city, $4.6 million during the planning period to make the entire master planning possible. And we are gearing up for as soon as after the August, we'll just say August, presentation to City Council. Once there's an implementation plan, we'll be gearing up to do capital campaign fundraising so that we can have philanthropy augment public funding. People are giving all the time, and that's how all of the programs and community engagement gets paid for. And so all of that's really important. You can give online right now at dixpark.org, and we'll be reaching out to people more as we have bigger projects to fund. The other piece goes to what Brian was saying and a few other people were saying, which is, and this is where I have the mic and Kate doesn't, because she is a fantastic city employee. You know, there is an election coming up, right? And no matter who you're supporting, whether you're talking about city council or the mayor in particular, what we need to know is that everybody supports the robust funding of Dorothea Dix Park, that they are going to fund this project in a way that makes it possible to realize the project's potential. And that is a big ask of them. They're going to vote on this 2 months before an election. And they're going to vote on a funding model where they're going to say, we think we should spend a lot of public money on this park. And they're going to say that, and there's almost no chance that there will be huge wins in public benefit for the next 2 elections, right? If it takes 2.5 years to go through all the design and build some amazing first things, that's really fast by government building standards. So 2.5 years, that means 2 elections, and they won't have anything to show for it except what the public feels. So the only way they know that's the right thing to do is if everybody in this room tells them that's what we need them to do. If we say this is what the community needs, this is what we want, this is what will have an impact, then they're going to say, oh, That's what I'm supposed to do to represent this community and move it forward.
Yeah.
And if we don't have their back and we don't tell them that, they're not going to have the comfort and safety and drive to get that done. So yes,
Yeah.
please and thank you. If you want to make gifts, absolutely please reach out to everyone you think about voting and ask them what they think about this and whether they're committed to funding it. And then it will be all the things that Kate just said it could be.
And we did not mean to go down the political rabbit hole, but
I did.
that was not planned.
Could you guys stand one more question? Yeah, last one, I promise. Back here, not gonna spill coffee. Okay,
Oh, man. So that was my question I was going to ask.
Oh,
but
sweet.
I got the mic now. So why don't you tell me? Yeah, all right. Check it. What's the biggest
What's my
hurdle you
favorite
have
color?
coming? No.
Yeah.
What is the biggest hurdle you have coming up with Dorothea Dix Park, and what is your favorite aspect of it personally?
Ooh, okay. One, I think this project is bold and ambitious, and it's going to be expensive. And we just all need to realize that. But this does not come at the cost of any other effort that we need to take care of as a community. And we just need to realize we can do all of those things to create a great community for everyone, including our most vulnerable. So the funding piece is... The funding piece, I think, will be one of our biggest hurdles. My favorite part, and I'm not saying this to be like politically correct, I really tried to stay neutral through the whole planning process because our role was to facilitate the conversation. I'm excited about a lot of different stuff. What I get most excited about is really silly things like when you hand a kid a sled who is carrying a cardboard box, you have become Santa on Christmas morning. Like, it is the personal reaction that people have to this place that makes me so excited. The design elements are awesome. They're gonna grow and change as we evolve as a community, but it really is that personal relationship between an individual and that park that makes me super excited to be leading this effort.
Yay. Well, let's thank Kate. Woo! Thank you for being with us.
Yes.